Hello class. Today I want to discuss with you the John Scopes trial, which happened in 1925 in Dayton, Tennessee. I want to discuss the origins a little bit. So it all originated at Fred Robinson's drugstore when a New York transplant by the name of George Rapalea, who was a 31-year-old coal company manager, wanted to challenge the Tennessee's new statute, the Butler Act, which basically prohibited the teaching of Darwin's theory of evolution in the classroom. Rapalea, himself a modernist Methodist, was very outspoken critic against this, and when he was in the drugstore wanted to rally people or see, if he could get support to contest it. So he had a ACLU paper at the time, which was basically wanted to see, if anybody would do a test trial in favor of trying to abolish the act. The town decided that high school biology teacher John Scopes was probably the perfect candidate, since he was a critic of the act and was a firm believer in evolution and Darwinism. So when they found John Scopes, it was taken to trial, and it was basically an epic showdown between modernists and fundamentalists in the small town of Dayton, Tennessee. And there's been some speculation as why it happened there. There's been some skepticism, and some of the town leaders noticed that the population declined rapidly, from 1895 to 1925. So I guess one positive thing about this would be that it would draw more people there, and it would essentially have them in the spotlight. And it was a huge spotlight. Although it was coined the monkey trial, many newspapers I've read recently state correctly that Darwin did not teach that man was descended from a monkey any more than a horse or another animal was descended from a monkey. All forms of life have a common ancestor, one-celled organism, and scientists and eventually modernists firmly believe this. And it basically contradicted fundamentalist views, which, especially with the first chapter, Genesis, it just made a huge conflict around the center of the case and the theories. I guess from one of the articles, one of the big questions of the trial was not whether Scopes should be fined for teaching it, but whether the law should be overturned. And this was huge. I read in a few articles that this was the major theme of the case. According to the articles, there were many people that believed the question was not whether or not evolution was true, but who had the freedom to teach it. And this, again, was a major component to the trial and the debate, because many Americans were interested in the case, and it wasn't just localized to Dayton, Tennessee, but throughout the whole country and the world. The major conflict of Darwinism obviously was the modernist and traditional values, and it really captured the attention of the country, and many people became divided over it, especially since the modernist and fundamentalist values were already coming into conflict before this. Some key figures from the case: William Jennings Bryan, a 3-time Democratic candidate for president, and was a leader against the theory of evolution. and a fundamentalist. Bryan was determined to get rid of Darwin's teachings from school textbooks, and basically stated that the hand who writes and pays the schools should be the one who determines what they should teach. For the defense team, Clarence Darrow actually joined up, and it was basically because Bryan joined the prosecution as when he decided he had the interest to join up and basically butt heads with them because they were two prominent figures, and he wanted to head the defense. I guess to basically prove a point, and he was obviously a modernist. Darrow's main argument was that the Butler Act of Tennessee only catered to one particular religious view, and therefore it should be illegal. So that this went on for the month of July, and there was so much attention there that the Army and the National Guard had to build tents around the town of Dayton to house all the people, the media, and everything. And I think the first day of the trial, there were 1,000 people trying to get packed into the courtroom. And bear in mind that Dayton was only a town of 1,800, so it was just huge publicity. So there was a jury of 12 men, and basically on the wishes of Darrow, they came back with a guilty verdict. And now for Darrow's strategy, he wanted to appeal to the Tennessee Supreme Court, and which he did. And the guilty verdict was a $100 fine for Scopes, and this was later reversed a year later. Now, it was not a major court ruling, but it did bring up the fascinating topic of whether or not evolution should be taught in schools, and who has the freedom of doing it. All the conflicting views were put front and center. And there were many other states, such as Arkansas, that had rulings of their own. So it kind of set up like a domino effect later in the decades to come. But it had a huge impact on society because now most school textbooks teach the theory of evolution, whereas back in the 1920s and earlier, it was a different story. So I hope you enjoyed my presentation and have a good day.